Welcome back to NFL Nexus. The Los Angeles Rams have had a busy, expensive, and frankly, a really impressive offseason. But you know what? The job's not finished. They've spent the money, they've made the big moves, but there's still a few key holes to fill. So in this explainer, we're going to break down the final pieces of their roster puzzle and the two very different paths they could take to complete it.
So after that flurry of moves, what's next? Where do Les Snead and Sean McVay go from here to put the finishing touches on what they hope is a Super Bowl contending roster? We're going to explore two completely different, but honestly equally fascinating strategies they could use. And hey, if you're into this kind of deep dive content, do me a favor and make sure you're subscribed to NFL Nexus and hit that like button. It helps us out a ton. And get ready to jump into the comments because I'm going to watch your take at the end.
Okay, let's get into it. Here's the game plan for today. We're going to start by looking at the offseason puzzle as a whole, just to set the stage. Then, we'll dive into option number 1, bringing back some familiar, trusted faces. After that, we'll pivot to a much bigger, much bolder swing, making the case for a star cornerback, L'Jarius Sneed. Then, we'll put those two paths head-to-head, and finally, I'm going to turn the final decision over to you.
Look, the Rams front office has not been sitting on its hands. They've been aggressive. They've made some huge moves, especially on defense, pouring a ton of money into building a championship-level unit. But even with all that work, a few spots are still, well, they're still open. They need a backup quarterback they can trust, they could use some proven depth at linebacker, and as any GM will tell you, you can never have enough good players in your secondary. This is that final critical phase where a couple of smart, targeted moves can be the difference maker come January.
All right, let's explore path number 1. This approach is all about what you know. It's about prioritizing veterans who already get the system, who fit the culture, and who can step on the field day one without some long, drawn-out learning curve. We're going to look at 3 former Rams who could provide fantastic value on pretty team-friendly deals. This is the low-risk, high-floor strategy, and it's a playbook the Rams have used really successfully in the past.
First up, and this one makes a ton of sense, is quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. You know, a reliable backup quarterback, a QB2, is probably one of the most underrated assets in the entire league for a team that wants to win it all. For the Rams, with Matthew Stafford as their guy, having a proven winner right behind him is absolutely crucial. And when you look at the guys available who know the system, Jimmy G is right at the top of that list. In fact, Coach Sean McVay has already made it pretty clear how he feels.
Now, this is not your standard run-of-the-mill coach speak. When Sean McVay says, "I love Jimmy, I would absolutely want him back," I mean, that is about as direct and as strong an endorsement as you're ever going to hear. He even took a playful shot at the Cardinals coach Mike LaFleur for trying to steal our guy, which just shows you how much they value Garoppolo in that building. McVay's also a realist, right? He knows Jimmy's a winner and will have other options. But with that potential move to Arizona now off the table, the door for a return to LA looks wider than ever.
At the end of the day, it's pretty simple. The Rams need a guy they can trust to step in and actually win games if, God forbid, Matthew Stafford has to miss some time. Garoppolo has proven time and time again he can do exactly that. He knows McVay's notoriously complex offense, he's a guy the locker room respects, and he just provides that steady veteran presence. He checks every single box. His return really feels less like a possibility and more like something they almost have to do.
Okay, next up, linebacker Troy Reeder. So we're shifting from a key piece on offense to a really critical depth player on the other side of the ball. Reeder might not be a household name to everybody, but his value to a coaching staff is just immense, especially for what he brings to that third phase of the game, special teams. For a team that's fine-tuning its roster, guys like Reeder are the glue that holds everything together.
So let's break this down, because Reeder's value comes in layers. First, he's a premier member of the special teams unit. For a coordinator like Bubba Ventrone, that's gold. And that leads right into the second point, being the holder of the standards. What does that mean? It means he's the guy who shows the rookies how to be a pro. He's first in, last out, setting the tempo in every drill. Third, with Sean Dolak's availability up in the air, Reeder fills an immediate need. And this is where his dual value is so brilliant. He can step in at linebacker because he already knows the system inside and out. You're basically getting 2 players for 1 roster spot. And finally, he's the perfect complement to the Grant Stewart signing, giving Ventrone 2 core leaders for that unit.
Look, signing Troy Reeder is not going to be the top story on SportsCenter, but it's a classic, smart football move that just makes your team fundamentally better. It strengthens a critical unit, it adds a respected leader to the locker room, and it gives you valuable defensive depth, probably for a pretty low price. This is exactly the kind of move that smart organizations make to round out a championship roster.
All right, our final candidate in this familiar faces category is defensive lineman Nick Hampton. A lot like Reeder, Hampton's value comes from his versatility, his professionalism, and the fact that he has intimate knowledge of the Rams' defense. He's another one of those essential glue guys that every contending roster needs to have, especially down in the trenches where games are won and lost.
So let's unpack what Hampton brings to the table. On defense, he's a really solid rotational guy who's great at setting the edge against the run. He also chips in on special teams, again, adding more value to that one roster spot. But here's the really cool part, the ripple effect that his presence has on the younger guys. Bringing Hampton back allows a promising player like DeJuan Johnson to be used in a more versatile inside-outside role, which maximizes Johnson's unique talents. So instead of being stuck in one spot, Johnson can be this situational pass-rushing weapon, all because Hampton is there handling the dirty work. That's what great depth does. It elevates everyone around it.
With Hampton, it really all comes down to one word: reliability. You know exactly what you're getting. A versatile player with zero learning curve who makes your defensive front better. He might not play 80% of the snaps, but the 20% he does play will be solid, dependable, and exactly what the coaches ask for. And that allows other guys to shine.
So that covers strategy number 1, building from within, securing the roster with proven, reliable guys. But what if the Rams decide to go a totally different way? What if, instead of just raising the floor, they decide they want to blow the roof off the ceiling? Well, now we explore that other path, making a big, ambitious splash for former Chiefs and Titans cornerback Algerius Sneed.
So you might be thinking, wait a second, why would a team that just spent over $200 million on its secondary go after another big-name corner? And on the surface, that's a fair question. It seems a little counterintuitive. But stick with me here, because there are 3 very compelling reasons why going after Sneed right now could be an absolute stroke of genius for the Rams. This isn't just about adding talent. It's about a unique strategic opportunity that's just fallen into their laps.
So here are the 3 pillars for the Sneed argument. First, we're going to look at how the Rams can offer Sneed a perfect get-right opportunity for his career. Second, we'll dive into the massive advantage of his pre-existing chemistry with guys already in the Rams locker room. And third, we'll talk about why his specific brand of toughness is exactly what championship teams are built on. Okay, let's start by putting ourselves in Algerius Sneed's shoes. He signed that massive 4-year, $76 million deal with the Titans, but injuries just completely derailed his time there. He only played 7 games in 2025 and 5 in 2024. Because of that, he's not getting that kind of money on the open market this year. He needs a place where he can prove he's still an elite corner. The Rams offer the perfect situation. They don't need him to be a workhorse CB1 playing every single snap. They can use him strategically, manage his workload, keep him healthy, and let him put elite play on film. This sets him up perfectly to go get another massive payday next offseason. And for the Rams, it means getting a top-tier corner on a manageable 1-year prove-it-style deal. It's a total win-win.
This is a huge factor, maybe the biggest one. The Rams have already brought in 2 of Sneed's former Kansas City teammates, Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson. Sneed won 2 Super Bowls playing right alongside those guys. The chemistry, the communication on the field, the trust, it's already built in. There would be zero getting to know you period. He could walk into that defensive backs room on day 1 and it would feel like a reunion. That unspoken understanding in a secondary, that's the difference between a big play and a busted coverage. And while he knows the Chiefs' system, the source material says it best. His friends are in Los Angeles. That's a powerful pull.
And this perfectly sets up the final point. In today's pass-happy NFL, you can never, ever have too many great cornerbacks. Adding Sneed would give the Rams, arguably, the deepest and most talented corner room in the entire league. But his value goes way beyond just his coverage skills. It's about his mentality, his toughness, and honestly, nothing demonstrates that better than this incredible story from his old teammate Jalen Watson.
Just listen to this. Watson is talking about how he learned to be a physical run defender. He says, I actually learned that from watching Sneed. He was like 180 pounds, soaking wet. We were playing the Raiders, and Josh Jacobs was running like a madman. Every time Sneed would just put his head in there, hit, get up, I want some more. Hit, get up, I want some more. Just imagine that for a second. A 180-pound cornerback repeatedly, willingly throwing his body at a powerhouse running back like Josh Jacobs, and not just surviving, but demanding more. That is an infectious, fearless attitude that defines a championship culture. That's the mentality you add to your locker room to go from good to truly great.
Okay, so we've laid out 2 very, very different strategies for the Rams. On one hand, you've got the safe, smart, depth-building approach of bringing back familiar veterans who know exactly what to do. And on the other, you have the aggressive, high-upside swing for a star player like L'Jarius Sneed. Both paths are trying to get to the same goal, strengthening this team for a Super Bowl run. But they represent two fundamentally different ways of building a roster.
And this slide really lays out the trade-offs perfectly. On the left, re-signing your own guys. That's all about stability. It's low risk, it's cost-effective, and it's focused on system familiarity and culture. On the right, going after Sneed is the opposite. It's a high-impact, high-profile move focused purely on adding elite talent with a championship pedigree. The benefit isn't stability, it's about dramatically raising the performance ceiling of your entire defense. One path solidifies the floor, the other one reaches for the absolute ceiling.
And that brings us to the final question. We've looked at all the evidence, we've analyzed the strategies, we've weighed the pros and cons of both ways of doing things, so now it's time for you to put on your GM hat. The roster's almost done, but you have one or two more critical moves you need to make.
So, what's the priority? Do you make the smart, safe moves first? Bring back Garoppolo, Reiner, and Hampton to make sure your foundation is rock solid with no weaknesses? Or do you take your shot and go all in on a potential game changer like L'Jarius Sneed, believing that one more elite player is the final ingredient you need? Let me know which path you would take. Drop it down in the comments below. I really want to see what you all think.
Thanks so much for watching this deep dive here on NFL Nexus. Your support is seriously what allows us to make content like this. And hey, if you want another way to support the channel and get something really cool for the football fans in your life, check out our coloring books. They're perfect for fans of all ages. You can find the link in the description or just scan the QR code on your screen. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next explainer.